So it's holiday time, long weekend, big camps on, everybody seems to be away. But you're here, that's good. Glad you're here, and I hope you enjoy this story. This story is a true story. It took place in America, and it took place on the biggest river in America. It's one of the longest rivers in the world. Do you know what it's called? Yep, say it out loud. Yeah, Mississippi. I'll repeat it for you. Okay, thank you. It's the Mississippi River. And the Mississippi River comes out in the Gulf part of America and it runs right up north, almost to the northern border. And this particular day, there was a boat. And you can see on the screen, there's a boat. It's probably not that boat, but it's like that because there were lots of paddle steamers that used to go up and down the Mississippi, taking people to their different destinations, etc. And on this particular occasion, the boat was coming down the Mississippi River and it was coming towards the end of its journey. And in one of the little ports that it pulled up on at the side of the river, some men who had come across from the west of the country, from California, they had been gold diggers. And they wanted to get onto the boat and finish the rest of the journey with the boat because it was heading down to their home was. So they hopped on, some of the last passengers on the boat. Well, everything was going well. The captain was happy the way everything was sailing. The river was flowing fairly fast and it was helping them get good speed down the river as well. When one day there was this almighty scraping, crunching sound going along the bottom of the boat. Do you know what it was? It could have been a rock. But in this case, it was a ship that had sunken there, but it hadn't been marked on the maps. And so the captain didn't realise that he was going over a shipwreck that had still some dangerous parts sticking up. And one of those strong, dangerous parts caught the bottom of the ship and started to tear a bit of a hole in the bottom of the ship. Well, you can imagine that everybody was a bit frightened about that. You know, what were they going to do? Was it going to be okay? Nobody seemed to be panicking. The captain seemed to think everything was still balanced and everything was good. When all of a sudden, one of the men working down in the lower part of the ship came running up to the captain and said, "It's filling with water." Oh, so the captain has to put in the plan of everybody now evacuating ship. And so he quickly organised for the lifeboats to be lowered over and for people to hop into the lifeboats. And people hopping into the lifeboats. But soon the lifeboats were full and not even half the people were on yet. What were they going to do? And so some people were able to swim because it's a river, even though it's a very wide river, but it was a river that had shores not too far away. So some people swam. Other people were able to grab pieces of driftwood even in the water. And I guess there must have been a bit of wreckage starting to come to the surface probably fairly soon. And they all managed, would you believe, either by raft boat or by a bit of driftwood or something, or swimming, they managed to get to the shore, except one man. I think he was one of the miners. It didn't say that in the story, but I kind of gather because of what he knew that in the bags of the miners who had hopped on at the end and whose luggage was sitting on the top in the luggage room, there was gold. And so he decided that he wanted to race down while the ship, because it was going down very slowly, it wasn't a quick sinking, the hole can't have been too big, but they were definitely going down, and he raced down and he walked into the luggage room. There's already water coming up his feet slowly as he went over to the top of the luggage, and there were some trunks belonging to the miners. He opened his own. He crashed open some of the others as well, and he pulled out of each of the trunks and the bags a small bag that had gold in it. Now, you can imagine they were fairly heavy, weren't they? Yeah, because even though the gold hadn't been separated in some cases from the ore, the rock that it was in, it still was a heavy bag that each of these miners had put into their trunks. And this man decided that the best thing he could do, and he found a piece of rope, was to tie them around his stomach really tight. And then he would be able to swim ashore and everything would be great. And so he did that. He managed to get all the gold he wanted, all the bags he could, probably ended up with more gold than a man could find in his whole lifetime. Had it all tied around his waist, and he ran upstairs. By this stage, the water was getting up to his waist. And he ran upstairs and realised that by this stage, most people had left the ship, the lifeboats had gone, and people were still diving into the water and going, he thought, all right, it's my turn too. So he dived into the water, and he never came up again. Why didn't he come up again? Gold is heavy, and the stones, the rock that was holding all that gold that he had tied around his stomach was so heavy that it held him under the water and he drowned. Now that's a sad story, but it's a silly story, a foolish story, isn't it? Imagine being so eager about getting your gold and everybody else's gold he was stealing that he lost his own life. And you know, in this world, lots of people do that too. They go after gold and silver, but do you know what? It doesn't prove to be as valuable as some other things. I'm going to ask if we could have the next slide up. Who would like to read that verse of Scripture? As you can see where it comes from, Proverbs 6:6, and the girls are nudging each other here. So who's it going to be? You're going to do it for us? Okay, we're on. Would you like to read that out for us in a loud voice?
How much better to get wisdom than gold, to get insight rather than silver?
Okay, thank you very much for reading that. Well done. And isn't that a good reminder to us, and that story a good reminder to us? Yes, we can go and pursue gold and silver and anything else we think is valuable in this life. But if we don't get wisdom, if we don't get, it says insight. I like my translation used the word understanding. Where do we get the best wisdom and understanding from? The best wisdom and understanding? God. And where has God put that information for us? In the Bible, you're right. And so we are talking today about the wisdom and understanding that was gained by one man hundreds of years ago by going to the Bible instead of relying on other sources for his knowledge for the future. And he got better than gold. We'll have a look at his story soon. Thank you.